and we'll just go through each and every one.
It's a couple for I just want to write down the cornerstones of the study.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, what do we got? Suppose that the production of plastic creates a social cost, which is depicted in the graph above. Without any government regulation, what price will the firm charge per unit of plastic? Okay. So when we're looking at without government regulation, is that social cost or private cost? Social cost, right? And then that obviously intersects with the demand curve at an equilibrium point. What is the price at that point?
No, this is chapter 10.
This is everything.
I mean, like that question.
Yeah. 3.5. Okay, she's right. You guys see it? The intersection of private cost and demand. When there's no government intervention, it's private. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because private savings versus government savings, stuff like that. So private cost intersection with demand gives you your equilibrium point without government intervention. With government intervention, it's up here at social cost. Okay? So $3.50 for number one. Got it? Makes sense? Moving on. Okay, well, the type is really small, so I'm going to read it off mine. Okay. A negative externality will cause a private market to produce blank. What?
Is it one of the externalities are?
You want to know the answer? Do you not have a copy?
They say right there.
I paid hockey did that.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to do it.
I was being
And I
sarcastic.
kept looking at the answers. And I was trying not to.
It's fine, you guys. Just if you understand, that's the point. So try to understand, not necessarily get right into. But. Okay. Well, let's draw a chart for this. Negative externality. Supply, demand, and this is what we know as private. I believe it's cost. I might be wrong, but I know it's private. So negative externality means that society doesn't like whatever's happening with it, okay? So therefore, the government is going to do something to shift that supply curve. I think you could also shift the demand curve to the left, just to decrease the quantity of it, okay? So this is social cost. Okay. So, when you are when you have a private market, you're producing at this level, this quantity. We'll say 100. Bless you. When you're producing at what the government intervention is, you're producing what? Sure, 50. And comparatively, 50 is what to 100? Less, more, the same? It's less. So when you're producing at private cost or private market, you're producing more than what's socially acceptable. You see that? At social, we're quantity of 50. At private, quantity of 100. So at private, we're producing more than what society says is acceptable. Does that make sense? Okay. 3. Private markets fail to research a socially optimal equilibrium when negative externalities are present because I don't really know why I said this now, but it's the right answer. The answer is obviously C, since it says it right there. Social costs exceed private costs at the private market solution. Well, that's obviously true when you look at the price. This is 80, this is 60. Social cost is way higher. It's because it's affecting those people. So because it costs them, we internalize that so that the consumers and producers in this market pay for it and not society, the third party. Okay? That might not make sense to you, but what you have to know is social cost is greater than private cost in negative externality.
Because you're going off by the number.
Yeah, you can look at comparatively social, we're up here at this new equilibrium, but that private, we're down here. So it costs more. So that's why these private markets aren't saying, oh, well, this is what society wants. They're like, well, it costs more, so we're not going to do that. We're not going to, like, put a detriment on ourselves when nobody's telling us to, but then the government says, hold up. And then taxes or regulation. Does that make sense? Any questions on that one? Okay. Moving forward. Number 4, if the government were to impose a fine of $1,000 for each unit of air pollution released by a steel mill, the policy would be considered blank. Okay, what is that, you guys? The answer is probably right in front of you, but what is it? Corrective tax. Why is that called a corrective tax? Anybody?
Taxing them for doing something wrong.
Right. And so, because you're taxing them, the problem will be correcting itself. If you put a tax on, let's say, the people of New York drank too much pop. So New York City said, all right, we're going to tax pop hard. So for each ounce of pop, they're going to have to pay an extra cent. Well, people will start consuming less and less. Same with gas. If gas prices go up, you consume less. Problem resolves itself because, well, we're not going to consume that much. Okay? Corrective tax. Good?
Okay, so one more time. Sorry, but
That's fine.
you said it's a corrected tax because they're imposing a fine on it?
So
Yes.
okay, so in this example, that steel mill is like polluting air.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time they pollute the air, they have to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So,
Right.
Okay.
you know, if they pollute less, they don't have to pay much.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
The tax is to encourage not to pollute.
Exactly. Okay. 5. Which of the following is not an advantage of corrective taxes? Okay. So we're going to go through what the advantages are, because that's how you solve for what's not. A. They raise revenues. Okay, we're still on this. They raise revenues for the government. That's true. We've seen that in a bunch of chapters previous. Taxes raise revenue for the government. They enhance economic efficiency. That's true because this is the efficient allocation with social costs. Okay, so that's efficient. And then D, they move the allocation of resources closer to the social optimum. That's basically the same thing. This is social optimum, and that's where we are. So it's obviously closer because it's there. Are we good with that? So those are all advantages. So this is not an advantage. They subsidize the production of goods with positive externalities. We've never even talked about the potential of that happening. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So when's the last time you heard that a tax on cigarettes was going to help pay for your college? I've never heard of it. If it happens, let me know. I'd love to get in on it. Okay? Good with that? All right. 6. Corrective taxes are typically advocated to correct for the effects of blank.
Negative external.
Negative externalities, exactly. Good with that. It's pretty straightforward. 7. Private solutions may not be possible due to the cost of negotiating and enforcing these solutions. Such costs are called blank. I didn't actually know this.
Can you flip the page?
Yeah.
I don't have part of that also. Thanks.
So basically, it's transaction costs. It makes the most sense out of all of these. Corrective costs, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Input costs, nope. Private costs, also nope. So transaction cost means that if you were to negotiate with another company or or trying to reduce your pollution, you're not going to want to do it because it costs you money. So like the transaction between, okay, we have to make these trade-offs to get rid of pollution or to help the environment, et cetera, et cetera. It costs a lot for them to do. They're not going to do it on their own, because why lose profits when you're not being forced to? Okay? Billy's Beanbag Emporium. Wow, what a company. 300 beanbag chairs, only sold 275. Costs $100 on average per unit. Price for each of the 275 units sold was $95. Or that's the price, not the cost. Okay, so this is simple math. And honestly, with the answers, you don't even have to solve the math, but we're going to solve the math. Okay. So first off, we're looking at the cost of producing each beanbag chair. So we had 300 beanbag chairs that we produced, and it costs on average $100 each to produce them, okay? If you're in accounting, this is so easy for you, but this is econ, so we have to do it slightly different. Okay, we said we sold 275, and we sold them at $95 each. That's your total revenue, okay? Now, if you're looking at these numbers, you can already tell that your total revenue is going to be less than your total cost. So there's only one answer with the negative profit, A. That's $3,875. Does anybody have a calculator?
Yeah.
Could somebody go ahead and do this first one for me?
26,125.
And then this one would be 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
So total revenue minus total cost will equal negative 3875. Yeah. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. All right. Moving on. Number 9. Jackie decides to open her own business. She earns $50,000 in accounting profit. Okay, that's good. She turns down 3 separate job offers with salaries $30,000, $40,000, $45,000. What is her economic profit from running her own business? Okay, what is economic profit? Somebody go.
Total cost minus explicit and then implicit.
Total cost or total revenue?
Total revenue.
Right. Oh, you're good. You're good.
The virus implicit.
So yeah, total revenue minus explicit cost minus implicit cost. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we already know her accounting profit, which is total revenue minus explicit costs, and that was 50,000. And now we have for 3 separate job opportunities. So if you had the option of 3 jobs, $30,000, $40,000, $45,000 a year to earn, you choose the highest. Common sense. So you have your accounting profit, 50 grand, minus your opportunity cost, which is the same as implicit cost, which is 45 grand, and you are left with $5,000 of economic profit. So it's still a good deal. All right? Everybody good on that? Well, the next one's going to be easy since we just did this one. Okay. Which of the following expressions is correct? You have a bunch of options. One of them is both A and B are correct. B is not correct, so that's simple enough. accounting profit equals total revenue minus explicit costs. We know this to be true, and that's that. Does that make sense? Your basic equations? Okay. Alright, number 10. Which of the following I'm sorry. There's a memory loss I'm trying to fight here. Number 11. If Kachino can work additional hours at either job, what is the opportunity cost if she spends 1 hour reading the novel? Okay. I split up in between. So this is the scenario. She's doing something at college. One job she can get $25 an hour, and another job she can get $20 an hour. So if you had the option, if you had to choose, do you want $25 for an hour, or do you want $20 for an hour? 25. Common sense. So it's saying if she spent an hour reading a novel, what's her opportunity cost? She's obviously not making anything from the novel, although she is gaining knowledge, so you can read if you so choose, but I never do. So what's her opportunity cost? What's she giving up?
$25.
How much?
$25.
$25, right? Because that's the most she could make if she did something else. Okay, number 12. When a firm is experiencing diseconomics of this, whatever it says. Diseconomies. Thank you. Long run. And then you have a bunch of blanks. So just draw a chart for this one. This is like your long run average total cost curve. Yeah. Over here is that. And then this is constant returns to scale, which is good. That's good. And then this one's this one. Okay. Your marginal cost curve, of course, is the Nike swoosh. So from looking at that, if we're in diseconomies of scale, this is UTC, cost. Alright, what's the answer? What? A profit? Well, it is a profit, yeah, absolutely. But, or no, it's not a profit, I'm sorry. We don't know that because we don't know the price. We just know that if we're over here in this section, we're producing somewhere at this level, okay? So what is that? This is average total cost, this is marginal cost. So what is that?
Marginal cost is higher.
Exactly. Marginal cost is higher than average total cost. That's really all the question's asking. So once you draw that picture, you're good. You can tell from that. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? It's not something you have to memorize. It's just you just look at it once you draw it. The curves, of course.
You have to memorize.
Yeah.
Scale.
Yeah, you have to memorize this, but not like the answer. Okay, if you're in diseconomies of scale, no, you don't have to remember that. Just draw the curve. Okay, number 13. 3 average total cost curves, blah, 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 3 different blank. Now, I was told that the correct answer is A, time horizons. I believe that to be true. I think that's right. So, does that make sense to everybody?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, I should just put the graph up and look at that. Yeah, I'll do that. This is saying that your first one is for let's say 2012. That was your average total cost for 2012. For 2013, that's ATC 2. 2014, ATC 3. So basically this long run average total cost curve is a combination of all three of these, because overall that's what it's been. Okay? It's three different time scales that, okay, this was our average total cost here, we're doing something different over here, we're doing something different over here. And so those average total cost curves change by the year. Okay? That's what that is. Because otherwise it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have three average total cost curves for like one factory. Okay?
So why wouldn't it be like products?
Because we're looking at this overall. So I want to say, and I'm not saying I fully understand this, so if I mislead, I'm so sorry. But it's saying quantity of output. So if you're producing 1,000 of one unit, and then 1,000 of another unit, and then you try to trace it on this graph, it'd be really confusing. Okay? So like quantity of output, we're talking like one product. It could be like here, 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 and in the long run, it's like this average total cost.
Because the products don't, like, they don't matter to each other.
Right.
Alright.
They're just
Time horizon, like, you're going to see some type of...
some change, right?
Yeah,
because
some type of similarity, though.
yeah, similarity for sure.
Yeah. Like 20, what happened in 2012?
Like what happened?
Facts, what happened in 2013?
Well, yeah, it all affects each other,
Yeah.
and so overall, this is your long run average total cost. It's saying that if you're producing 3,000 for 4 years, this is about your average cost for that 4-year period. I think that's what it's saying. That's the best of my understanding on it. But if you're doing it for only 1 year and you're producing like 1,000, it's right here. Or if you're producing it for 2 years and you're producing 1,000, you're looking at way up here somewhere. And if you only do it in year 2, if you extend it, it's on that long curve. Okay.
So what would it look like if it was like firms or products?
If it was firms or products, not like that. If it was products, I would want to say for each individual product you would have another one of these if this is in the long run. But if it's one product, you're only going to have one average total cost curve. If it's one product in the short run, okay? If it's one product in the long run, you have this. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to put multiple products on the same graph like this without a bunch of different Sharpies. I don't know. You know, you'd have to color code it. It'd be a big hassle. It's hard enough just with these graphs by themselves. So I hope that makes sense.
Just kind of know when I see the test and I see that graph, just think time.
Should be time horizons. Okay, that's fine. I can take the blame, honestly. I'm fine with that. All right, good to move on. 14. When a factory, could you check that, see if it's still filming real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. When a factory is operating in the short run, okay, everything else doesn't make sense except for D. Okay, it cannot adjust the quantity of fixed inputs. So what that means is you can't go tell your landlord, hey, I think the rent should change. I really think the rent should change. Probably not going to happen. Okay? Does that make sense? You can't change your fixed input. You still have to pay for the lights. You still have to pay for the land. You don't just get to decide, basically. Now, long term, you can say, we'll move to a different building, but short run, not so much. You can't just up and leave, okay? 15. The marginal product of the fourth worker is blank. Yes, it's D. So the fourth worker. Do we all see where that comes from? So this is the fourth worker that's being employed. This is the output at the fourth worker, 32,000. At the third worker, we were only putting out 27,000. So what you do is you take the difference between what you were at the fourth worker and the third worker. So 32,000 minus 27,000, you get 5,000, and then that's over the change in the amount of workers. Okay, because if this is 5 and then 10, and you don't take it into account, you're going to be wrong. But because it's 1, your marginal product is 5,000. Okay.
So you said minus the fourth worker by the third worker?
Right. So it'll be 32,000 minus 27,000 over 4 minus 3. Does that make sense?
So when it's marginal.
So you said one more time, please?
So yeah, sure. 32,000 minus 27,000 over 4 minus 3. Because that's the difference in output over the difference in technically input. Okay. We good to move on to 16? Okay. This graph illustrates a typical blank. Okay, this is a fun one. Does anybody know it without looking at the next page for the answer? Well, it says it right here, but on my paper it's production function. That is correct. Does that make sense? It's like the laptop thing. You're gonna produce a lot more if you go from 0 laptops to 1 laptop. You go from 1 to 2, you'll produce a bit more still. When you go from 6 laptops to 7 laptops, how are you going to use 7 laptops at once? You can't keep producing more and more and more and more. Eventually, it will be diminished, which is, I think, what the next question is. Okay, makes sense? 17. When adding another unit of labor leads to an increase in output that is smaller than the increase in output that resulted from adding previous units of labor, the firm is experiencing blank. Is diminishing marginal product. Okay? It just means that at some point you're leveling off, basically. You're putting in the same amount of input, that additional laptop, and it's just less. It basically looks like this. Do you remember the elastic curves from earlier chapters? Do you remember that? Elastic curves?
Yeah.
This is a big difference. Oh, that looks funny. And this is really small. Okay, so you're putting a lot more in, and your result is not that much. It's not proportional. Okay? So that's diminishing marginal product. Good? Which of the following is not a characteristic of a perfectly competitive market? Okay, so again, let's go through the ones that are. That makes sense. Okay. Firms are price takers. We know this to be true in competitive markets. They don't get to decide what the price is. That's determined by supply and demand initially. Okay? It doesn't change. That's just how it is. Okay. C. There are many sellers in the market. We know this to be true. There has to be in a competitive market. D. Goods offered for sale are largely the same. Well, obviously, if it's a competitive market, we're all making like the same exact thing, okay? And it's perfectly competitive, so they have to be pretty much the same product. So therefore, the answer is B. Firms have difficulty entering the market. They don't. We know that firms can freely enter and exit markets in perfectly competitive markets. Okay? Are we good with everything on that? Okay. Suppose a firm in a competitive market reduces its output by 20%. As a result, the price of its output is likely to blank. Change?
Remain unchanged.
Oh, remain unchanged. Okay, good. I thought you said change. Yeah, you're right.
Is
It will-
it because we are price takers, so like it doesn't matter?
Exactly. We're price takers. We don't get to decide. Just because we can go from producing 1 million to 1, and in a perfectly competitive market, it doesn't matter. The price is still the same. We don't get to decide. Okay. Number 20. Beautiful. For this firm, the marginal revenue of the 12th unit is blank. What's important is right before this, it said the table represents a demand curve faced by a firm in a competitive market. So that's the keyword competitive. So what is the answer? 11. Because it's the change between all the other ones. That's the marginal revenue for those. So for every single unit, it will be 11. That's how it works in a competitive market. Or perfectly competitive. Sure. Okay. Any questions on that? It just means we don't need the 11th unit because we know it's a competitive market. Okay? 21. Suppose a firm in a competitive market produces and sells 150 units of output and earns $1,800 in total revenue from the sales. If the firm increases its output to 200 units, total revenue will be blank. This is a math problem. So we know that the total revenue is just divided by total units sold. So $1,800 divided by 150 units. Can somebody find out what that is? I think it's 1 point. I don't want to say the wrong number. Is it 1.2?
I have 12.
12. Yeah. That's okay. At least you had the right number. It's just not the right decimal. That's all right. So you're making $12 of revenue per unit, and it's saying it's increasing output to 200. So all you do is you take that $12 per unit, and you multiply by 200. You're gonna get 2,400. Look at that. Simple enough, right? Good to move on. Okay, 22. If a competitive firm is currently producing a level of output at which marginal costs exceed marginal revenue, then blank. This is another chart. Can somebody tell me the shape of the marginal revenue line in a perfectly competitive market? Or just competitive market? That's marginal cost.
Okay.
We're looking for marginal revenue. Yep, it's price. Price equals marginal revenue equals average revenue. I think that's what it is. So horizontal line. Marginal revenue stays the same for every single unit. And then marginal cost is the Nike. So, if marginal cost exceeds marginal revenue, well, what does that mean we should do? We should go back. should get to that point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, because we know that that's the profit maximizing point. Okay?
Killing it. Killing it.
23, same line of thought. The 100th unit produced is marginal revenue of $7, marginal cost of $10. So literally, you just take that same picture. Oh, marginal cost of $10, marginal revenue of $7. Well, looks like we should produce less than 100. So that was nicely set up for us. That's good. Does that make sense? Because this is the profit maximizing level, is it not? Right here.
Yeah.
Whatever that number may be. It's 80, even though it's 90. My graph is disproportionate. It's got to be, because that's where price intersects marginal cost. Okay? 24. If the firm is currently producing 14 units, what would you advise the owner? So this is what we have to look at: marginal cost and marginal revenue. Yeah. So if we're producing at 14 right now, our marginal cost is $7 per unit. Our marginal revenue is $7.50. Now you say, we should be producing at the same level, $7.50. Well, if you go up, you go to 8. So you're producing at the right allocation right now. If you go to 15, you start losing money. You lose 50 cents. Okay? So you stay at 14. That's all there is to it. If you get so lucky as to line up with the number, so if it was $7 for marginal cost and $7 for marginal revenue, that's pretty darn good. You stay right there. All right. 25. Oh, we only have a few more. Is that still recording? That'd be great if it was.
Yep.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Is that for your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on just for the other students. I mean, this obviously isn't my type of entertainment, but I mean, if you're entertained by this, good for you. But I personally, this is no show. Now, Dave Chappelle's new stand-up, that was quite the show. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was funny.
I watched it twice, man.
Yeah, I watched it last night. That's why my eyes are still red, because I laughed so hard and then I stayed up late. But here we go. 25. What is Bill's economic profit at the profit maximizing output level? Okay. You have this chart, and you really need to fill it all in. I'm not going to fill it all in for you, because that will take a long time. Especially to write that whole thing out. But I will go to the point where it's profit maximizing. What is it? Yeah.
For marginal cost, do you just take the total cost times your quantity?
No.
Isn't it the difference? in
It's
total
the
cost,
difference.
Like the next one?
Yeah, it's the difference between current total cost and the last total cost. Okay?
Okay.
So for this, for quantity of 1, you take 50 minus 0. For quantity of 2, you take 102 minus 50. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Of course it's divided by the units produced, but since it's a difference of 1, we don't really think about that. Okay?
So it'd be.
So marginal is always different.
I'm sorry, which
So marginal is always going to be different. Like the difference between
Yes.
like marginal cost would be the difference between like 1 unit and marginal revenue. Okay.
marginal revenue will always be the same in a competitive market. Okay? What was your question, Rachel?
You said to, if the difference was just one, if it was like a bigger difference, you'd have to end up
If it was
dividing it by.
if it was a difference, if it was between 0 and 10,
Uh-huh.
you'd have to divide by that difference. Okay? So it'd be like 50 divided by 10 minus 0, which would be 10. So the marginal cost would be 5.
You saw, so like,
So I will show you an example because I don't want to confuse any of you by just telling you this. If you have total cost of 50, 0, 1, 2, this is your total cost, this is your output quantity, that'll work. Marginal cost. Obviously it's not applicable there. You take the difference in total cost from this unit to the last one, 50 minus 0, over the difference in quantity, 2 minus 1. Equals 50. That's why we never really think about it because we've always divided by 1. But if on the test you have different quantities, for example, 10 and 0, I don't know why I did 1 for total cost, that doesn't make any sense, but it's still fine. Okay, if you have quantity of 10 and the last one 0, you take 50 minus 0 for your total cost, that difference, and then 10 minus 0, because that's your difference in quantity, right? So 5, or 50 over 10, equals 5, okay? You always have to account for, okay, what if the difference isn't 1?
mm-hmm.
If it's 1, everybody's happy, okay? But if it's,
Say they would be one.
I don't remember. If we,
I feel like they haven't done any.
we haven't done any that haven't been 1, but I remember him saying that make sure that it's
So
quantity.
that's marginal cost.
That's marginal cost. That's how to solve for that. Okay? So, the profit maximizing output level, you have to go through and fill out marginal revenue and marginal cost to find that out. Okay? And it's also helpful to figure out total revenue as you go along just because it looks nice on the chart, I guess, but you don't have to. That point is at 6 units, and your marginal cost is 80. So your total cost at 6 units is 365. Marginal cost is 80. Quantity demanded 6. Price is 80. Total revenue is 480. Yep. And marginal revenue is 80. Notice how marginal revenue is the same as the price. Okay?
So all marginal revenues is 80.
Oh, so it's
All the marginal revenues will be 80
Right.
in a perfectly competitive market such as this. Okay? So how do we know this is the profit maximizing allocation? Because marginal revenue equals marginal cost here. Okay? That's why 6 is the profit maximizing allocation. Now it's saying, what is the economic profit? Now I got a little confused because there was no talk of implicit cost, so I just kind of did accounting profit. So you take total revenue, which is 480, minus total cost, which is 365. And that equals 115. That is your profit. Does this make sense, you guys? Any questions on that?
Why did we stop at 6? I forget.
That's the profit maximizing allocation.
Because it equals the same as the price.
Because, not because it equals the same as the price. The price is always 80, no matter what. It is the price, but more specifically, when you're working with perfectly competitive markets, it's the same thing. More specifically, marginal revenue. Because marginal cost equals marginal revenue, which is equal to the price in this case, because it's a perfectly competitive market. So when marginal cost equals marginal revenue, when the Nike sign meets the horizontal line, that is your profit maximizing allocation. Okay. Okay, good to move on to 26. Yes? I will assume yes unless someone stops me. Okay. Winona's, is that right? Winona.